Hello, this is Richard Walker from Lucidate. Welcome to the third video in this series on cryptocurrencies. We're structuring the video around a walkthrough of Satoshi Nakamoto's 2009 paper, Bitcoin, a peer-to-peer electronic cash system. There are many other cryptocurrencies other than Bitcoin. Some have chosen different design choices which appeal to different people and different use cases. The purpose of this video series is not to favour one approach over another, though Lucidate does have its favourites, but rather the purpose is to explain the key principles that are more or less shared by cryptocurrencies. At video production time, Bitcoin has the largest market share and mindshare, so it seems sensible to focus on that. In this video, we're going to address what Dr. Nakamoto wrote at the top of page 2 of the 2009 paper. Here, Satoshi said, "We define a coin as a chain of digital signatures." This seemingly throwaway statement is a fundamental reason why Bitcoin works. An understanding of its implications helps in comprehending the difference between trust-based and proof-based systems. In this video, we'll talk about what makes up verified transactions on a ledger. We'll compare the accounts and balances of trust-based systems to the chain of verified and signed transactions in proof-based systems. In the next video, we'll talk about blockchain and the mechanisms to stop people spending their Bitcoin multiple times. An assumption here is that you understand digital signatures and how they work using hashing and private public key encryption. If you need a refresher on these topics, they're covered in the previous video. A crucial difference between cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin and traditional trust-based systems is how ownership is recorded. In trust-based systems, you typically have an account with an associated balance. An account is owned by someone or some corporation. Balances can be positive or negative. Your credit card balance will typically be negative, indicating that you owe the credit card company money. Bank accounts can be negative if overdrawn, positive if in surplus. As long as you trust the intermediary, this arrangement works superbly. Often the most recent transactions will be included on an account statement to allow parties to periodically reconcile balances. Mistakes can and do happen, but generally disputes are settled amicably and appropriately. But pause and ponder for a while. What if the trust intermediary made a mistake which it then refused to correct? What if it decided to arbitrarily inflate or reduce a balance? What would you do? The chances of this happening are almost zero, but it serves to illustrate exactly how much trust we put in a trust-based system. This system of accounts doesn't work solely for cash. Brokerage accounts will contain positions in bonds and shares. Derivatives accounts will contain details for swaps, futures and options. Reconciliation disputes for these instruments are far more common than for simpler cash balances. Positions and mark-to-market valuations are regularly queried. These reconciliations and disputes are expensive and increase the frictional costs of trading in these markets. As we shall see, the adoption of some of the techniques used in cryptocurrencies can drive these reconciliation and dispute costs close to zero. While there remains a great deal of hype around cryptocurrencies, much of the legitimate interest in decentralized finance is centered around the potential to eliminate the frictional costs of reconciliation and disputes. Cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin don't have accounts. They have signed, verified transactions that sit on a public shared ledger. Transactions that have been sent to your address linked to your public key on the ledger belong to you, and only you, as owner of your private key, may unlock or spend them. In crypto techno speak, the Bitcoin you own are called UTXOs, or Unspent Transaction Outputs. These UTXOs are the axiomatic core of cryptocurrencies like Bitcoin. These UTXOs are what Satoshi Nakamoto was referring to when describing the coin as, quote, a chain of digital signatures. Not all cryptocurrencies work like this. Other crypto systems like Ethereum do have the concept of accounts, and these are useful for executing smart contracts, which we'll discuss in a separate video series. To show how central UTXOs are, and to see what role each component plays, let's walk through a simple transaction. All of the Bitcoin currently in existence were minted through a process called mining. Much more on mining in the next video. All the coins that you have received, either by mining, purchasing them with cash, or in exchange for stuff you've sold, will be recorded on a ledger. There are multiple copies of this ledger, hence the term distributed ledger. All of these copies are kept in sync by miners and nodes. The ledger is public in clear text and visible to all. For others to send you Bitcoin, they need to know your address, which is derived from your public key. Again, in crypto technical speak, you have a set of UTXOs, unspent transaction outputs, against your public key on the public ledger. Let's say a couple of years ago, Lucidate bought 2.6 Bitcoin for $20,000, and about a decade ago, someone bought a pizza from her for 0.6 Bitcoin. I hope they enjoyed their pizza. The chain of digital signatures for these unspent transactions means that Lucy has a total of 3.2 Bitcoin. A less technically correct but more familiar way of describing this would be to say Lucidate owns 3.2 Bitcoin. It is more technically correct, however, to say that in exchange for her $20,000, the public ledger ends up with a validated record on it. This record is an unspent transaction output totaling 2.6 Bitcoin that can only be unlocked or spent with Lucy's private key. Similarly, the exchange for the pizza results in another record on another part of the ledger. This records another UTXO, this time of 0.6 Bitcoin, which again can only be unlocked or spent using Lucy's private key. Thus, Bitcoin transactions consume and create UTXOs. The UTXOs consumed by a transaction are called inputs. The UTXOs created by a transaction are called outputs. This way, units of Bitcoin value move forward from owner to owner in a chain of transactions consuming and creating UTXOs. Transactions consume UTXOs addressed to the hash of a public key. Only the owner of the private key paired with that public key can unlock the UTXOs. Transactions create UTXOs linked to the Bitcoin address of the new owner. Once an input UTXO is part of a valid transaction, it is spent and removed from the set of available, i.e. unspent, UTXOs. Lucy wishes to buy a Tesla for 3 Bitcoin. The inputs are the signed, verified UTXOs that Lucy owns. These UTXOs were sent to an address created from her public key and can only be unlocked using her private key. The outputs are the new addresses to which the coins will be sent, the prospective new owners of the presumptive new UTXOs, if you will. In this specific case we're considering now, there'll be 2 inputs. These are the UTXOs that Lucidate owns. They come from the sale of the pizza for 0.6 Bitcoin and the purchase of 2.6 Bitcoin for $20,000. There'll be 2 outputs. The first will be 3 Bitcoin paid to the Tesla Corporation, and the second will be 0.2 Bitcoin in change paid back to Lucy. All of these details of unspent transaction, consumption, creation, public and private keys, multiple inputs and outputs are all handled by a special piece of software called a wallet, and we'll discuss wallets in the next video. So in order to send the 3 Bitcoin to the Tesla Corporation, Lucy will need to enter the address where the Bitcoin need to be sent. This will be a hash of the Tesla public key. In this specific case, her wallet will create a transaction with these two inputs and these two outputs. Once the message is constructed, then it can be digitally signed and dated. This follows the digital signature process that we went through in the last video. Your wallet will handle all of the details of SHA-256 hashing and private key encryption, all of which ensures that you sent the message and that the message has not been altered or tampered with. Now, this alone does not stop a user trying to spend her UTXOs more than once. We will address that in the next video. But you can see here that unless someone else knows Lucy's private key, they cannot spend her Bitcoin. Your private key is your Bitcoin. Never reveal your private key to anyone. Treat your private key like all of your cash. If you leave all of your cash where someone can take it, then someone will. In the next video, we'll discuss what happens to this message as it makes its way to becoming a verified, confirmed transaction on the public ledger, how it will be verified by components called nodes, how it will be included in a block by software agents called miners, and ultimately how it will exist as a confirmed, verified transaction on a distributed public database. This is Richard Walker from Lucidate. Please join me in the next video where we'll discuss blockchain, the distributed public database at the heart of cryptocurrencies that guarantee the fidelity of the payment system by ensuring proof of ownership of each UTXO.